The notification came through at 3:15 a.m. while I was brushing my teeth after a late shift at the hospital. My wife Jessica's iPad, sitting on the bathroom counter charging, lit up with a message preview that made my blood run cold. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. When can we meet again? The sender's name read Tyler Brennan. I stood there, toothbrush hanging from my mouth, staring at those words like they were written in a foreign language my brain refused to translate. Jessica was asleep in our bedroom, 10 feet away. Our daughter Emma's gentle breathing came from the nursery monitor. Everything looked the same as it had 5 minutes ago, but something fundamental had just shattered. My hands moved on autopilot. I picked up the iPad. No passcode, she'd never needed one, or so I thought, and opened her messages. What I found in the next 60 seconds destroyed 12 years of marriage, 8 years of friendship before that, and every assumption I'd built my adult life upon. The messages went back 4 months. 4 months of hotel meetings, stolen afternoons, and explicit plans made while I was working double shifts to cover the new mortgage on our house in Riverside, California. Tyler Brennan worked at her marketing firm, some hotshot creative director who'd transferred from their New York office. The messages painted a picture I couldn't unsee. Intimate details about their encounters, complaints about me, mockery of our marriage. He's so predictable, one message read. Works his shifts, comes home exhausted, falls asleep watching Netflix. He doesn't even notice when I'm late anymore. Tyler's response. His loss is my gain. You deserve someone who sees you. I wanted to vomit. Instead, I did something that would prove crucial in the weeks ahead. I started taking screenshots. My phone's camera worked silently in the dim bathroom light, capturing everything. Messages, photos she'd sent him, their entire conversation history. My trauma surgeon training kicked in. Assess, stabilize, treat. Emotions could wait. Right now, I needed documentation. 20 minutes later, I had everything backed up to 3 separate cloud accounts. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type the passwords. The bedroom door creaked as I stepped out. Jessica stirred but didn't wake. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The woman I'd met in college who'd supported me through medical school, who'd cried happy tears when Emma was born, who I'd trusted with every piece of myself. That woman was gone. Or maybe she'd never existed the way I thought she did. I grabbed my keys and left. Just walked out at 3:30 in the morning and drove aimlessly through empty Riverside streets until the sun came up. By the time dawn broke over the San Bernardino Mountains, I'd made several decisions. First, I wasn't going to confront her yet. Second, I needed a lawyer. Third, I was going to protect my daughter above everything else. When I finally returned home at 7, Jessica was in the kitchen making coffee, Emma babbling happily in her high chair. The picture of domestic normalcy. "You're up early," Jessica said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Couldn't sleep?" "Got called in for an emergency consult," I lied smoothly. "Just got back." She nodded, distracted, checking her phone. Probably looking for messages from him. I poured coffee and kissed Emma's forehead, my heart breaking at how normal this all seemed. How many mornings had I done this exact routine while Jessica was planning her next rendezvous? How many times had I kissed her goodbye before a shift while she counted down the hours until she could be with him? "I've got that conference in San Diego this weekend," Jessica said casually. "Friday through Sunday, remember?" I remembered. She'd mentioned it 3 weeks ago. "A marketing conference," she'd said. necessary for her career advancement. I'd arranged my schedule to cover childcare, even traded shifts with another surgeon to make it work. Right, I said. The Hilton downtown? Yeah. She smiled, and I saw the lie in it now, wondered how I'd missed it before. Boring panels and networking events. You know how it is. There was no conference, I'd already checked. What there was, according to her messages with Tyler, was a weekend getaway they'd been planning for weeks. A beachfront hotel in La Jolla, a couple's massage, dinner reservations at an expensive restaurant overlooking the ocean. All booked and paid for while I watched our daughter and worked 70-hour weeks. Sounds great, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. Emma and I will have a daddy-daughter weekend. Jessica's smile widened, relief evident in her eyes. You're the best. I don't know what I'd do without you. The audacity of that statement, the sheer, breathtaking audacity, almost broke my composure. But I held it together, played the role of the oblivious husband for 3 more days while I prepared. I called out sick from work, something I'd done maybe twice in my entire career. Then I made appointments. First with a divorce attorney named Patricia Walsh, whose office was in downtown Riverside and whose reputation was formidable. Then with a private investigator, recommended by a colleague who'd gone through his own messy divorce. The PI, a retired police detective named Raymond Foster, listened to my story without expression. You want photographic evidence of the affair, he stated, not asked. I want everything documented, I replied. Everything that might matter in court. He quoted me a price that made me wince, but I didn't hesitate. Do it. The following Tuesday, I stood in the surgical lounge reviewing patient charts when my phone buzzed. Raymond Foster. Got what you need, he said without preamble. They checked into the La Jolla Resort Friday at 3:15 p.m., separate reservation under his name. She arrived 20 minutes after him, different cars, but they went straight to the same suite. I've got time-stamped photos of both arrivals, them together on the balcony Saturday morning, dinner at the hotel restaurant, walking the beach. They didn't leave the property much. Made it easy. I felt my jaw tighten. Send everything to Patricia. Already done. Also documented her leaving Sunday afternoon. Solo departure, different timing from him again. Classic affair playbook. He paused. You holding up? I'm fine. Sure you are. Another pause. The evidence is solid, airtight. Your attorney will know what to do with it. After he hung up, I stood there holding my phone, staring at nothing. Around me, the hospital continued its relentless rhythm. Codes announced overhead, residents rushing past, the perpetual beeping of monitors. My world had fractured, but the machinery kept running. Jessica had returned Sunday evening with a rolling suitcase and stories about keynote speakers, networking events, marketing trends. She'd kissed Emma, asked about my weekend shifts, complained about conference hotel coffee. The lies flowed like water. I'd smiled, nodded, asked appropriate questions. How was the conference? Exhausting but productive. Made some good connections. I bet she did. Wednesday morning, Patricia called me into her office. The PI's report sat on her desk, a thick folder with photo printouts clipped to documentation. This is comprehensive, she said, flipping through pages. Hotel receipts, GPS data from the vehicle surveillance, photographs with clear timestamps. Raymond's testimony about what he observed will support it all. She looked up at me. Combined with the message documentation you provided, we have an extremely strong case for fault-based divorce in terms of public perception, though California is no fault for legal purposes. What this does is give us leverage. Leverage for what? Custody arrangements, asset division. When the other side knows you have this level of documentation, they tend to become more reasonable. Nobody wants their affair details entered into public record if it can be avoided, even in a no-fault state. She tapped the folder. Jessica's attorney will advise her to settle favorably rather than fight. I thought about Emma. I want primary custody. Based on this evidence of deception and the stability you can provide, that's a reasonable goal. We'll push for it. Patricia leaned back in her chair. But I need to ask, are you ready for confrontation? Because once we file, there's no going back. Her world will detonate. I'm ready. When do you want to move forward? I considered. Give me one more week. I want to make sure everything at the hospital is covered. Arrange for time off. I don't want this affecting patient care. She nodded. Use the time to prepare yourself emotionally, too. Document any additional suspicious behavior. Keep playing the role. Her expression softened slightly. I know that's not easy. It wasn't. Going home each night, watching Jessica move through our house like nothing had changed, listening to her casual lies, it took everything I had. But my surgical training had taught me patience. Steady hands, precise timing. I could wait one more week. That Saturday morning, Jessica announced she was volunteering at the animal shelter again. They really need help with the weekend adoption events, she said, pulling her hair into a ponytail. I should be back around 4. This had become her pattern over the past month. Every Saturday, sometimes Sundays too. She'd started volunteering at the Riverside County Animal Shelter back in February, right around when the affair began. At the time, I'd thought it was sweet, community-minded, good for her soul. Now I wondered. After she left, I fed Emma breakfast and played with her in the living room, but my mind kept circling back. The timing felt suspicious. 4 months of affair, 1 month of weekend shelter volunteering. Jessica had never shown particular interest in animals before. We didn't even have pets. I pulled out my phone and searched for the Riverside County Animal Shelter website. Their volunteer page listed scheduled shifts, requirements, policies. I scrolled through the staff directory, then I saw it. Tyler Brennan, Weekend Volunteer Coordinator. My blood went cold. The website showed volunteer schedules were posted publicly to encourage community participation. I clicked through to the current month's calendar. Jessica's name appeared on Saturdays. Tyler's name appeared on the same Saturdays, listed as the coordinating supervisor. Every single one. I checked back through previous months using the site's archive feature. The pattern held perfectly. When Tyler was scheduled, Jessica volunteered. When he wasn't listed, she didn't show up. She wasn't there for the animals. She was there for him. I sat on the floor next to Emma, who was stacking blocks, and felt rage burn through the numbness I'd been maintaining. The shelter, a place meant to help abandoned animals, had become their meeting spot. The audacity of it, the calculated deception. Then I thought about shelter policies, volunteer codes of conduct, facility access rules. I opened my laptop and dug deeper. The shelter's volunteer handbook was available online, a PDF outlining expectations, procedures, liability waivers. I skimmed through sections on animal handling, cleaning protocols, adoption procedures. Then I found the relevant section. Volunteers are restricted to public areas and designated volunteer workspaces during operational hours. Access to administrative offices, storage areas, and facility spaces during non-operational hours is strictly prohibited except for authorized staff. Violations of facility access policies will result in immediate termination of volunteer privileges. Non-operational hours. The shelter closed at 5 p.m. on Saturdays. I checked Jessica's previous returns from volunteering. She'd come home at 6:30, sometimes 7 knocks, after closing. I looked at Emma, who smiled up at me with Jessica's eyes, and made a decision. At 5:45 p.m., I pulled into the animal shelter parking lot with Emma in her car seat and a box of donations in the trunk. Old blankets, towels, pet supplies I'd purchased that afternoon at the pet store. Legitimate donations. A legitimate reason to be there. The parking lot was nearly empty. 2 cars remained. A silver Honda Accord I recognized as Jessica's, and a black Audi sedan. The shelter's main entrance was locked, lights off in the front reception area. A sign indicated they'd closed at 5 hours. But around the side of the building I noticed a door propped slightly open. I got Emma out of her car seat, settled her on my hip, and grabbed the donation box. Then I walked toward that side door. It opened into a hallway lined with storage rooms and what looked like administrative offices. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. From somewhere deeper in the building, I heard voices, muffled, indistinct. I followed the sound. The hallway opened into a back area with large kennels and supply storage. Most of the space was dark, but light spilled from an office at the far end. The door was half open. I walked closer, Emma quiet against my shoulder. Then I heard Jessica laugh. That particular laugh she used when she was flirting. My stomach turned. I reached the doorway and looked inside. Jessica sat on a desk, legs crossed, wearing her volunteer t-shirt. Tyler stood in front of her, hands on her waist, leaning in close. They were alone in what appeared to be a private office, completely absorbed in each other. Neither of them noticed me. I pulled out my phone with my free hand and started recording video. Tyler said something I couldn't quite hear. Jessica smiled, touched his face. I cleared my throat. They jumped apart like startled cats. Jessica's face went white when she saw me standing there with Emma, and my phone pointed at them. What are you doing here?" she stammered. "Bringing donations," I said calmly, holding up the box with my other arm. "The website says the shelter accepts them anytime. Didn't realize volunteers had access to private offices after hours, though." I looked at Tyler. "You must be the weekend coordinator." Tyler's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, guilt, defiance. He settled on defensive. "We were just finishing up paperwork." "In the dark? With the door closed?" I kept recording. "Interesting paperwork session." Jessica slid off the desk. "This isn't... You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I stopped recording and pocketed my phone. "I also understand that volunteer policies prohibit unauthorized facility access during non-operational hours. It's in the handbook, Section 7. Tyler's jaw tightened. "You need to leave." "I'm leaving. Right after I drop these donations at the front desk and have a word with whoever's in charge of volunteer oversight." I shifted Emma to my other hip. She'd started fussing, picking up on the tension. "I'm sure they'll be interested to know their weekend coordinator is using shelter facilities for personal activities after closing." Jessica moved toward me. "Please don't. We can talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about." I met her eyes. "Not here, not now." I turned and walked back down the hallway, Emma against my shoulder, leaving them standing at that office. Behind me, I heard urgent whispered arguing, but I didn't stop. At the front entrance, I found an emergency contact number posted on the door. I took a photo of it, then called immediately. A woman answered. Karen Dunn, the shelter director, according to her voicemail greeting I'd heard before she picked up. This is Dr. Bennett, I said. I just attempted to drop off donations at your facility and discovered volunteers accessing restricted areas after operational hours. I have video documentation. I think you'll want to see it. The shelter director, Maureen Caldwell, arrived within 20 minutes of my call. I'd moved Emma and myself to the front lobby, keeping the donations visible, maintaining the image of the concerned volunteer, making a weekend drop-off who'd stumbled onto something unexpected. Maureen was in her late 50s, gray hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing jeans and a fleece jacket with the shelter's logo. Her expression shifted from irritation at being called in on a Sunday evening to concern as I explained what I'd found. I brought these donations, I said, gesturing to the bags of food and supplies. The front was locked, but I saw lights in the back. The side door was propped open with a brick. I called out, thought maybe someone was working late, and found 2 volunteers in the administrative office, alone. Door closed. I didn't mention Jessica by name. Didn't need to. Maureen's jaw tightened. Show me. I led her through the facility, Emma balanced on my hip, my phone's video safely stored in my pocket. We found the office empty now. Jessica and Tyler had clearly fled through the back exit I'd deliberately left unguarded. The brick still propped the side door open. The office showed signs of hasty departure. Jessica's jacket draped over a chair, 2 coffee cups on the desk, the computer still logged in under Tyler's credentials. Maureen's face went rigid. She checked the timestamp on the computer. 4:47 p.m., well after the shelter's 3 p.m. Sunday closing time. This is a serious violation, she said quietly. Our insurance explicitly prohibits unauthorized access outside operational hours. If something had happened, if there'd been an injury or an incident, she trailed off, pulling out her phone. I need to review security footage. Of course, I said. I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. The animals, I mean. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw recognition dawn. You're Jessica's husband, Dr. Bennett. I am. Something in my tone made her pause. She glanced at Emma, then back at me. I see. The donations are from both of us, I said evenly. Jessica's very passionate about her volunteer work here. Spends almost every weekend at the shelter. Maureen's expression suggested she understood everything I wasn't saying. I'll need to speak with both volunteers involved. This will require a formal investigation. I understand. I have video from when I first entered, if that helps establish timeline. Just wanted documentation in case there were any questions about the donations or why I was here after hours. She nodded slowly. Email that to me, please. And thank you for the donations. And for calling me instead of… She gestured vaguely. Instead of what? Causing a scene? Confronting them myself? I simply nodded. Jessica came home 2 hours later. I was in the living room, Emma playing on her activity mat, the television showing a nature documentary neither of us was watching. She looked flustered, hair slightly disheveled, eyes red. Hey, she said, voice carefully casual. How was your afternoon? Good. Took Emma to the shelter with those donations. You know, the ones we've been collecting. I watched her face carefully. She went pale, then flushed. Oh, I didn't know you were planning to do that today. Spontaneous decision. The shelter was closed, but I saw lights on in the back. Called the director to make sure everything was okay. Jessica's hand gripped the doorframe. And, was it? Maureen's handling it. Apparently there were some policy violations. Volunteers accessing the facility after hours, that sort of thing. I kept my tone neutral, almost bored. She seemed pretty concerned about insurance liability. I see. Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. She mentioned she'd need to speak with the volunteers involved, review security footage. I finally looked directly at her. You volunteer there most weekends. You know anything about people using the facility outside operational hours? The silence stretched between us. Emma babbled happily, oblivious. I should, Jessica started, then stopped. I need to make a call. Sure, Tyler's probably worried about the investigation too. Her face crumpled. You know. I've known for 3 weeks, since the conference in San Diego. Actually, I've known for 6 weeks since I saw the messages on your iPad at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning while you slept. Jessica sank onto the couch, all pretense gone. Oh God. The shelter was clever, I'll give you that. Legitimate volunteer work, regular schedule, Tyler as the coordinator so he could control access. How long have you been using the facility for your meetings? Since he started there in January? She didn't answer, just stared at her hands. Maureen will review the security footage, I continued. She'll find every instance of after-hours access. Every time you and Tyler stayed late or came in on closed days. The shelter's insurance requires detailed logs. She mentioned that specifically. Please, Jessica whispered. Please don't do this. I didn't do anything. I brought donations to an animal shelter, found a safety violation, reported it to the appropriate authority. Everything else? I gestured vaguely. That's on you and Tyler. What happens now? With the shelter? Maureen will complete her investigation. Policy violations of this magnitude typically result in permanent removal from the volunteer program. The shelter board will probably implement new security measures, additional oversight for after-hours access. They take their responsibility to the animals seriously. I meant with us. I looked at Emma, rolling onto her stomach, reaching for a stuffed toy. Patricia Walsh is my attorney. Raymond Foster is the private investigator who documented your weekend in La Jolla. Every hotel visit, every lie about working late, every text message mocking me while I worked double shifts saving lives. All of it is documented, photographed, time-stamped, and filed. Jessica's breathing became ragged. You've been planning this. I've been protecting my daughter and myself. You made your choices, Jessica. You chose them every weekend for 4 months while pretending to care about rescue animals. You chose them every time you kissed me goodbye and drove to a hotel. You chose them when you let me believe we had a marriage worth preserving. I never meant, don't. My voice was sharp enough that Emma looked up, startled. I softened immediately, smiling at her until she returned to her toy. Don't insult me further with explanations about what you meant or didn't mean. Jessica wiped her eyes. What do you want? I want you to move out. Tonight. Patricia has prepared separation papers. You'll receive them tomorrow. We'll negotiate custody arrangements through our attorneys. Emma is my priority, my only priority. She's my daughter, too. Then you should have thought about that before you risked everything for Tyler Brennan. I stood, picking up Emma. There's a hotel 2 miles from here. I suggest you pack a bag. Can we at least talk about... No, we're done talking. You'll hear from Patricia in the morning. She left an hour later, 1 suitcase and her laptop bag. Didn't argue, didn't plead further, just packed mechanically and walked out to her car. I watched from Emma's nursery window as Jessica's taillights disappeared down the street. My daughter was already asleep, her breathing soft and steady on the monitor. My phone buzzed. Email from Maureen Caldwell. Security footage reviewed. Both volunteers terminated effective immediately. Board meeting scheduled for Tuesday to address policy gaps. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. A second email, this one from Patricia. Separation papers ready for service tomorrow morning. Deposition scheduled for Friday. Everything is proceeding as discussed. I set the phone down and looked at Emma's sleeping face. In the week since that 2:47 a.m. discovery, I'd moved through shock, grief, rage, and finally to this strange, cold clarity. Jessica had built her affair carefully, layering lies with legitimate activities, using charitable work as cover for betrayal. But she'd underestimated my capacity for strategic thinking. My training as a trauma surgeon had taught me to assess, prioritize, and act decisively under pressure. To separate emotion from necessary action. To document everything because details matter when lives are at stake. My marriage was dead. Had been dead for 4 months while I'd remained oblivious. But my daughter was safe, my evidence was comprehensive, and Jessica's carefully constructed deception had collapsed under the weight of her own carelessness. The shelter would recover. They'd implement better security, stricter volunteer oversight, more careful screening. The animals would be fine. Tyler would lose his volunteer coordinator position, possibly face questions from his employer about judgment and ethics. Jessica would lose the community standing she'd built through her volunteer work, the reputation she'd cultivated as a devoted animal advocate. And I would have my daughter, my career, and eventually, my life back. I turned off the nursery light and headed downstairs. Tomorrow would bring attorneys and paperwork and the formal dismantling of a 12-year marriage. But tonight, Emma was safe, Jessica was gone, and I could finally breathe without the weight of pretending everything was fine. The house felt different without Jessica in it. Quieter, emptier, but also cleaner somehow, as if her absence had removed a contamination I hadn't fully recognized until now. I poured myself a glass of water and sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd maintained my facade of ignorance for 3 weeks. No more pretending. No more strategic deception. Just the truth, documented and undeniable, ready to be presented in divorce court. The call came 3 days later while I was reviewing patient charts in the hospital break room. Dr. Bennett, this is Maureen Caldwell from the shelter. I wanted to update you on the situation. I set down my coffee. I appreciate that. We've completed our internal investigation. The security footage confirmed what you reported. Multiple instances of Ms. Bennett and Mr. Brennan accessing restricted areas during closed hours. We found evidence they'd been doing this for approximately 3 months. She paused. I want to apologize. This is a serious breach of trust, and it happened on my watch. You couldn't have known. Perhaps not, but I should have been more vigilant. We've terminated both their volunteer positions permanently. They're also banned from all Riverside County Animal Services facilities. Her voice hardened. Additionally, we're implementing new security protocols. Key card access for all restricted areas, mandatory check-ins and check-outs, security camera upgrades in previously unmonitored zones. That sounds thorough. It needs to be. We're a nonprofit that depends on community trust. What they did, using our facility for personal assignations while animals in our care needed attention, it's unconscionable. She exhaled sharply. I've also contacted the other shelters in the county network. They've been informed of the situation. That surprised me. You're sharing this with other organizations? The animal rescue community in Southern California is tight-knit, Dr. Bennett. Volunteers often work across multiple facilities. If someone demonstrates this level of unprofessional behavior and dishonesty, other organizations deserve to know. Her tone softened slightly. I hope that doesn't seem vindictive. Not at all. It seems responsible. There's one more thing. Mr. Brennan listed his employer on his volunteer application, the marketing firm where your wife also works. Our policy requires us to notify employers when volunteers are terminated for misconduct involving facility misuse. My hand tightened on the phone. You're contacting his workplace? It's standard procedure for serious violations. We have liability concerns. If someone misuses our facility and we don't report it, we could be held responsible for enabling future misconduct. She paused. The notification goes out tomorrow. After we hung up, I sat motionless for several minutes. I hadn't anticipated this particular domino. Jessica's affair partner was about to have his professional life complicated in ways I hadn't orchestrated. I felt nothing about it. Patricia called that afternoon. The process server located Jessica. She's staying at a hotel near the airport. Papers were delivered an hour ago. How did she react? According to the server, she looked stunned, asked if there was some mistake. Patricia's voice carried a note of dry amusement. There wasn't. What happens now? She has 30 days to respond. Given the evidence we have, I expect her attorney, assuming she retains one, will advise her to negotiate rather than contest. But people don't always take good advice when emotions are involved. And Emma? The temporary custody arrangement stands. You have primary physical custody. She has supervised visitation rights pending the final hearing. The judge reviewed the evidence of her deception and instability. Lying about her whereabouts for months doesn't suggest reliable parenting. I closed my eyes. Emma was napping in the hospital's childcare facility 2 floors down. I'd started bringing her to work rather than leaving her with Jessica's mother, who'd called me a heartless bastard when she learned about the separation. There's something else, Patricia continued. I received a call from an attorney named Douglas Wright. He represents Tyler Brennan. That got my attention. Why is Tyler's lawyer calling you? He wanted to discuss the situation and explore whether we'd be willing to keep certain details confidential in exchange for cooperation during the divorce proceedings. She let that hang in the air. I told him we don't negotiate with third parties and that his client's legal exposure is his own problem. Legal exposure? Apparently, Mr. Brennan is concerned about potential consequences at his workplace. He wanted assurances we wouldn't provide information to his employer about the affair. Can we even do that? It's not our information to give. Exactly what I told Mr. Wright. What his employer learns or doesn't learn is outside our control and, frankly, none of our concern. She paused. Though between you and me, I suspect he's already in trouble. These things have a way of spreading. She was right about that. The animal rescue community wasn't the only tight-knit network in Riverside. The first message came that evening while I was feeding Emma dinner. An unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Local. We need to talk. This has gone too far. Jessica. She must have gotten a new phone or was using someone else's. I deleted it without responding. 10 minutes later, another. You're destroying people's lives over a mistake. Tyler could lose his job. Is that what you want? I set down the spoon and stared at the screen. The audacity was almost impressive. She'd spent 4 months lying to my face, using charity work as cover for an affair, and now I was the one destroying lives. I blocked the number. A different number appeared 20 minutes later. Please. We need to figure this out like adults. For Emma's sake. For Emma's sake. The same daughter she'd been willing to lie to indefinitely while maintaining her double life. I blocked that number too. Raymond called the next morning. Thought you should know. Tyler Brennan was placed on administrative leave yesterday afternoon. I was in the hospital parking lot, about to start my shift. How do you know that? I still have contacts at various places. His employer received notification from the animal shelter about the misconduct. They launched an internal investigation. He paused. Apparently, there's a morality clause in his employment contract. Using non-profit facilities for personal affairs while representing the company as a volunteer coordinator, it's not a good look. Is Jessica affected? Not directly. She wasn't the volunteer coordinator, just a regular volunteer. But the affair is now known throughout their workplace. I'm told the atmosphere is uncomfortable. I imagined Jessica walking through those office corridors, former colleagues knowing exactly what she'd done. Part of me, the part that had loved her for 12 years, felt a flicker of sympathy. It died quickly. One more thing, Raymond said. Jessica's been trying to contact you through mutual friends. She's telling people you're being unreasonable and vindictive. Let her talk. She's also claiming you're trying to take Emma away from her permanently. My jaw tightened. I'm ensuring my daughter has stability and honest parenting. If Jessica wanted to be present in Emma's life, she shouldn't have spent 4 months prioritizing an affair over her family. I'm not judging, Dr. Bennett, just keeping you informed. His voice softened. For what it's worth, you're handling this better than most people would. The email arrived 2 days later. Jessica's new attorney, a woman named Karen Phillips, requesting a meeting to discuss terms and explore the possibility of mediation. Patricia and I sat in her office reviewing the message. She wants to negotiate, Patricia said. That's actually a positive sign. It means she understands fighting this in court won't end well for her. What are they likely to ask for? Joint custody, probably. Shared parenting time, no supervised visitation requirements, possibly spousal support, depending on the income disparity. She looked up. What do you want? I'd been thinking about this for days. Primary custody of Emma. Jessica can have regular visitation, but I want final decision-making authority on medical, educational, and welfare issues. No overnight visits until Emma's older and can articulate if something's wrong. That's reasonable given the circumstances. Spousal support? I don't care about the money. Whatever's fair based on California law. Patricia made notes. I'll respond and set up a mediation session. But Dr. Bennett, prepare yourself for her to be emotional. People often are when reality sets in. The mediation was scheduled for the following Thursday. I arranged coverage at the hospital and dropped Emma with my sister, who'd flown in from Phoenix when she heard what happened. You look tired, Karen said, hugging me at her door. I am tired. She doesn't deserve you. Never did. She kissed Emma's forehead. We'll have fun today, won't we, sweetheart? Emma giggled and reached for Karen's necklace. As I drove to Patricia's office, my phone buzzed with another message from an unknown number. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Sorry was a word. It didn't rebuild trust or undo months of calculated deception. It didn't explain why she'd looked me in the eye every morning and lied without hesitation. It was just a word, and words had stopped meaning anything. The mediation conference room felt like a stage set for civilized warfare. Neutral beige walls, a polished oval table, leather chairs arranged with mathematical precision. Jessica sat across from me with her attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Diane Porter, who'd built her practice defending high-conflict divorces. Patricia sat to my right, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed our settlement proposal. I hadn't looked directly at Jessica since entering the room. Peripheral vision told me enough. She'd lost weight, dark circles under her eyes inadequately concealed by makeup. Part of me registered this information with clinical detachment. The rest of me felt nothing at all. "Thank you all for coming," the mediator began. Gerald Whitmore, 60-something, gray beard, the kind of practiced calm that came from witnessing hundreds of marriages dissolve. "I've reviewed both parties' initial positions. Let's start with custody arrangements, as that seems to be the primary point of contention. My client is seeking joint physical custody," Diane said immediately. 50-50 time split with their daughter. Dr. Bennett's current arrangement is unnecessarily punitive, given that Ms. Bennett has been Emma's primary caregiver since birth. Patricia didn't even glance up from her notes. Ms. Bennett abandoned her role as primary caregiver when she chose to spend her weekends fabricating volunteer work to facilitate an extramarital affair. The temporary custody order reflects the court's concern about her judgment and prioritization. "That's," Jessica's voice cracked. First time I'd heard it in 3 weeks. "That's not fair. I made a mistake, but I'm still Emma's mother. I love her." I kept my eyes on the table, counted the wood grain patterns. "Ms. Bennett," Gerald said gently, "you'll have opportunities to speak. For now, let's let the attorneys present their positions." Diane leaned forward. "My client acknowledges the affair was a serious error in judgment. However, nothing in her behavior suggests she's unfit as a mother. Emma has never been neglected or endangered. Ms. Bennett's parenting has never been questioned until her husband decided to weaponize their daughter in retaliation for—" Stop. The word came out harder than I'd intended. Everyone looked at me. "Don't finish that sentence." Patricia touched my arm lightly. Professional reminder to stay controlled. "Dr. Bennett," Gerald said, "would you like to respond?" I finally looked at Jessica. She flinched. "Emma was asleep in her crib while you were texting your affair partner about hotel rooms," I said quietly. "You tucked her in, kissed her goodnight, then spent the next 2 hours planning how to spend the weekend with another man. You looked me in the eye every Sunday evening and told me about injured dogs and adoption events while you'd actually been—" I stopped myself. This isn't about retaliation. This is about demonstrating that you're capable of maintaining the lie while holding our daughter. That's what concerns me." Silence filled the room. Jessica's eyes were wet. "I never lied to Emma. She's 10 months old. You lied around her, which is the same thing." I turned back to Gerald. "I'm not trying to erase her mother. I'm trying to ensure stability while Jessica figures out who she wants to be." "My client has already begun therapy," Diane interjected. "Individual counseling twice weekly with Dr. Andrew Phillips, a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's committed to understanding her choices and rebuilding trust." "Rebuilding trust," I repeated. The words tasted like ash. "With who exactly?" "With you," Jessica said. "With Emma. With myself." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "You think we're rebuilding something? Jessica, we're dividing assets. That's the only thing being built here. The marriage doesn't have to be over, she said. Her attorney shot her a warning look, but Jessica ignored it. We could try counseling, real counseling, together. People recover from affairs. Marriages survive. Ours won't. You haven't even given me a chance to. 4 months. I kept my voice level. You had 4 months of chances. Every morning you woke up next to me, every time you held Emma, every single moment you chose to continue lying. Those were all chances. You used them to plan your next meetup with Tyler. He meant nothing, Jessica said desperately. It was stupid and selfish, and I hate myself for it. But it wasn't about you. It wasn't about us. It was... Don't, Patricia's voice cut through. Ms. Bennett, I'd strongly advise you to stop talking. But Jessica was crying now, words tumbling out. I got lost. The baby, the exhaustion, feeling invisible. I know that's not an excuse, I know it doesn't justify anything, but I just wanted to feel like myself again. Like someone saw me as more than just a mother or a wife. And Tyler, he was available, I finished. And convenient. And willing to tell you whatever you needed to hear. I looked at Diane. Is there an actual custody proposal, or are we just relitigating the affair? Diane pulled out a document. We're proposing a graduated schedule. Currently, Ms. Bennett has 4 hours of supervised visitation 3 times per week. We'd like to move to unsupervised visits within 30 days, then begin overnight visits at 60 days, with the goal of reaching 50-50 custody within 6 months. Patricia was already shaking her head. Unsupervised visits, fine. Overnights at 90 days, conditional on therapy progress and no contact with Mr. Brennan. 50-50 custody revisited at 1 year, not 6 months. Mr. Brennan is irrelevant to... Mr. Brennan was the person she violated shelter policies with, Patricia said crisply. The person she prioritized over her family for months. If she's serious about rebuilding her life, she can demonstrate that by maintaining appropriate boundaries. You can't dictate who I have relationships with, Jessica said. I looked at her then, really looked. You're still seeing him? She went pale. No, I'm not. We haven't. But you want to. It wasn't a question. He's been supportive during this difficult... Jesus Christ, I stood up, needed to move. He's been supportive. The man you destroyed our marriage with has been supportive while you lose custody of our daughter. It's not like that. Then what's it like, Jessica? Explain it to me. I was pacing now, Patricia watching me carefully. Because from where I'm standing, you're in mediation claiming you want to rebuild trust while you're still in contact with your affair partner. Do you understand how that sounds? We work together, she said weakly. We have to communicate about... He's on administrative leave, I said. Patricia confirmed it yesterday. His morality clause investigation is ongoing. So unless you're also on leave, you're not working together on anything. Diane looked at her client with barely concealed frustration. Jessica's face crumpled. He texted me, she whispered. A few times. I responded, that's all. When? Does it matter? When, Jessica? Last week, and yesterday. The mediator cleared his throat. Perhaps we should take a 15-minute break. Let everyone collect themselves. I was already heading for the door. Patricia followed me into the hallway, waiting until we were out of earshot. That was productive, she said dryly. She's still talking to him. Which works in our favor for custody. Diane knows it too. That's why she looked ready to strangle her own client. Patricia checked her phone. The judge will see continued contact with Brennan as evidence she's not taking the situation seriously. I don't want to use this for leverage, I said. I want her to actually be a good mother to Emma. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Patricia's expression softened slightly. Look, I know this is hard, but Jessica just handed us significant ammunition. If she's unwilling to cut contact with Brennan, the court will absolutely factor that into custody decisions. Through the conference room's glass wall, I could see Jessica bent over the table, shoulders shaking. Diane was talking urgently, probably delivering the same message Patricia just gave me. My phone buzzed. Text from the hospital. Multi-vehicle accident incoming. All hands needed in the ER. I have to go, I told Patricia. Emergency at work. She nodded. I'll handle the rest. We'll push for the 90-day overnight schedule and the no-contact provision. Given what just came out, Diane will probably advise Jessica to accept it. I was already walking toward the elevator. Behind me, I heard the conference room door open. Wait, Jessica called. Please, can we talk? Just the two of us? I pressed the elevator button, didn't turn around. There's nothing to talk about. I'll stop, she said. Talking to Tyler. I'll block him completely. Whatever you need. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. Do it because it's the right thing for Emma, I said, stepping inside. Not because I need you to. The last thing I saw before the doors closed was her face. Devastated, desperate, finally understanding that some things, once broken, don't get fixed. They just get divided up and moved on from. The emergency turned out to be a multi-vehicle pileup on the 91, 3 critical patients arriving simultaneously. I spent the next 6 hours in surgery, which was exactly what I needed. The operating room had always been my sanctuary, the one place where nothing existed except the immediate problem in front of me. Bleeder, clamp, suture, assess, stabilize, save. By the time I scrubbed out, it was nearly 8 p.m. My phone showed 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. Most were from Jessica. I deleted them without reading. Patricia had left a voicemail. Bennett, we need to reschedule. Call me when you can. Raymond's message was more direct. Got some interesting developments. Not urgent, but worth discussing. I drove home in silence, picked up Emma from my neighbor Claire, who'd been watching her since the mediation disaster, and went through our evening routine. Bath, bottle, stories, bed. Emma fell asleep clutching her stuffed giraffe, oblivious to the wreckage of her parents' marriage. I was halfway through a microwaved dinner when my doorbell rang. Jessica stood on my porch, and she looked terrible. Red-rimmed eyes, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was wearing sweatpants and one of my old medical school hoodies that she'd apparently taken when she moved out. We need to talk, she said. It's late. Please, just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. She walked into the living room but didn't sit. Just stood there, wringing her hands like she was trying to figure out where to start. I ended it, she said finally. With Tyler, completely. I blocked his number, his email, everything. I waited. I know you don't believe me. I know I've destroyed any trust between us. But I need you to know that I did it. Not because of the custody arrangement or the lawyers or any of that. Because it was wrong. Because I was wrong. You were still texting him this morning. I know. Her voice cracked. I know. God, I don't even know what I was doing. Trying to have everything, I guess. Trying to keep all my options open like some kind of selfish... She stopped, took a breath. Dr. Reeves, my therapist, She asked me what I actually wanted. Not what I thought I should want, but what I really wanted. And the answer was Emma, being her mother, having the chance to be the parent she deserves. You already are her mother, not the way I've been acting. She finally sat down, perched on the edge of the couch like she might bolt at any second. I've spent the last 6 hours thinking about what you said, about doing this for Emma, not for you. And you're right. You're completely right. I can't fix what I did to you. I can't undo it or explain it away or make it better. But I can fix what I'm doing to her. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. What do you want from me, Jessica? Nothing. I'm not here to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that I meant what I said in mediation, about wanting to be a better mother, about the therapy and the work I need to do. And I wanted you to know that Tyler is gone, completely gone, until he's not. No. She met my eyes, and for the first time in months, I saw something that looked like genuine conviction. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I'm done with him. I'm done with all of it. The only thing I care about now is Emma. My phone buzzed. A text from Raymond. Call when you can. Tyler's situation resolved. I looked at Jessica. Raymond says the Tyler situation is resolved. What does that mean? Her face went pale. He got fired. This afternoon. The investigation found that he'd violated multiple company policies. The shelter thing, using work time for personal matters, falsifying his volunteer coordination reports. They terminated him immediately. And you know this how? He called me. Before I blocked him. He was... She stopped, seemed to reconsider. He was angry. Blamed me for everything. Said I should have kept my mouth shut about the shelter, that I'd ruined his career. Charming. It was a wake-up call, hearing him like that. Realizing that the person I'd been sneaking around with, lying to you for, risking everything for, he was just angry that there were consequences. Not sorry, not ashamed. Just angry that he got caught. She wiped her eyes. I told him to lose my number and hung up. Then I blocked him everywhere I could think of. I wanted to feel vindicated. Wanted to feel something other than the hollow exhaustion that had settled into my bones. But all I felt was tired. Okay, I said. Okay? Okay, I heard you. You ended it. You blocked him. He's fired and out of the picture. Bennett, I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying anything changes between us. But if you're serious about being there for Emma, then I'm not going to stand in your way. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. Don't thank me. This isn't for you. I know. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Finally, Jessica stood up, pulling the hoodie tighter around herself. I should go. I needed you to know. I walked her to the door. She paused on the threshold, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I really am sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. Good night, Jessica. After she left, I called Raymond. Tyler Brennan is officially unemployed, he said without preamble. Got the confirmation from my contact at their HR department. Terminated for cause, no severance, no references. He's done in the marketing world, at least locally. Jessica told me. He called her. Did he now? Raymond's tone sharpened. What did he say? She said he was angry. Blamed her for everything. She blocked him after. You believe her? I thought about the woman who'd stood in my living room 20 minutes ago. the genuine fear in her eyes when she talked about Tyler's call. The way she'd looked when she said she wanted to be a better mother. I think I do. About this anyway. Well, either way, he's not in a position to cause much trouble. Lost his job, lost his volunteer position, and the shelter incident is making the rounds in the local nonprofit community. Nobody's going to want to work with him. What about the company investigation? Anything else come out of that? Oh, you'll love this. Turns out you and Jessica weren't his first rodeo. There was a situation at his New York office. Inappropriate relationship with a subordinate. Nothing was ever proven, so they just transferred him out here instead of dealing with it. But once this investigation started, the previous complaints resurfaced. The company's trying to avoid a lawsuit, so they cut him loose fast. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. Jessica didn't know that. Most people didn't. It was all handled quietly. But yeah, your wife was just the latest in a pattern. After we hung up, I poured myself a drink and sat in the dark living room. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of settling floorboards. I thought about telling Jessica what Raymond had said, about Tyler's history, about the pattern she'd been part of. But what would be the point? She'd ended it. He was gone. Knowing she'd been one of several wouldn't change anything. My phone buzzed again. Patricia this time. Mediation rescheduled for next Thursday, 2 p.m. Jessica's attorney confirmed she's willing to proceed with supervised visitation terms. Call me tomorrow to discuss. Progress. Slow, painful progress. I finished my drink and checked on Emma one more time before bed. She was sleeping peacefully, one small hand curled around her giraffe's neck. Whatever happened with Jessica, whatever custody arrangement we ended up with, Emma would be okay. I'd make sure of it. 18 months later, I stood in the backyard watching Emma toddle after a butterfly, her delighted squeals cutting through the warm September afternoon. She'd be 2 next month, talking in short sentences, running everywhere, fearless in the way only toddlers can be. "Daddy, look!" She pointed at the butterfly as it landed on our fence. "I see it, sweetheart. Pretty, isn't it?" Jessica arrived at 5 for the custody exchange. We'd settled into a rhythm over the past year. She had Emma every other weekend and Wednesday evenings, with holidays split according to the parenting plan. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. She looked different now, healthier. Her hair was shorter, and she'd started wearing glasses instead of contacts. Small changes that somehow made her seem more solid, more present. "Hey," she said, setting down the diaper bag. "How was your week?" "Good. She's been asking about the zoo. I told her you might take her this weekend." "Already planned." Jessica smiled as Emma ran over, arms outstretched. "Hey, baby girl, ready for our adventure?" I watched them together, Jessica patient as Emma showed her the butterfly spot, explaining in toddler logic about wings and flowers. Whatever else had happened between us, Jessica had kept her word. She'd done the therapy, maintained boundaries, showed up consistently for Emma. Not perfectly, but genuinely. "Bennett," she said as she packed up Emma's things, "I wanted to tell you, I'm moving. Got a job offer in Sacramento. Better position, fresh start." My chest tightened. "When?" 2 months. I've already talked to my attorney about modifying the custody arrangement. I'm not trying to take her away. I know this is her home. But I'd like extended summer visits, some holidays. We can work it out. I nodded slowly. Part of me had known this was coming. Jessica needed distance from Riverside, from the wreckage of what we'd built here. We'll figure it out, I said. For Emma. For Emma, she agreed. After they left, I cleaned up the yard and thought about the past year and a half. The divorce had been finalized 8 months ago, relatively amicable in the end, once Jessica had committed to doing the work. Tyler had moved back to New York, last I'd heard. The shelter had implemented their new policies and moved on. Life had simply continued. I'd dated briefly, a nurse from the hospital, nothing serious. Mostly I focused on Emma and my work. The emergency room still needed trauma surgeons. Broken things still needed fixing, even if some breaks were permanent. My phone rang. Karen, my sister. "How's my favorite niece?" she asked. "With Jessica for the weekend. Sacramento job came through. How do you feel about that?" I considered the question. Relieved, maybe? She needs a fresh start. And Emma will be fine. Kids are resilient. So are you, apparently. After we hung up, I stood in the quiet house and realized something had shifted. The anger that had sustained me through those first terrible months was gone. So was the grief, the sense of betrayal, the obsessive need to understand why. What remained was simpler. I was Emma's father. Jessica was her mother. We'd both do our best with that responsibility, separately, imperfectly, but genuinely. The marriage was over. Had been over since that 2:47 a.m. notification, really. But Emma was here, healthy and happy and loved. That was what mattered. I'd learned something in the wreckage. That trust, once broken, doesn't rebuild. It gets replaced with something else. Boundaries, maybe. Clear expectations. The kind of relationship you have with a co-parent rather than a partner. And I'd learned that documentation, evidence, strategic thinking, all the things that had protected me during the divorce, couldn't protect you from the simple fact that people change, or reveal themselves, or disappoint you in ways you never imagined possible. But you survive it anyway. You get up, take care of your daughter, go to work, fix what you can fix. You let go of what you can't. You stop asking why and start accepting what is. The butterfly Emma had been chasing earlier landed on the porch railing. I watched it rest there, wings opening and closing slowly, before it lifted off and disappeared over the fence. Some things leave. Some things stay. You don't always get to choose which is which, but you do get to choose what you do with what remains. I went inside, made dinner for one, and started planning Emma's birthday party. 2 years old. A lifetime ahead of her, shaped by choices her parents had made but not defined by them. That would have to be enough.